I am an NRI husband and father, and I want to get divorced, but I want custody of the kids. What am I supposed to do? There's a common question posed to me by a lot of NRI husband clients, and I have to explain to them in great detail the nuanced points about custody, maintenance, criminal cases, etc. Now, when I had discussed these situations with perhaps 100 or 200 foreign-based NRI clients, I used to think, oh, India is worse, and clients based out of the US or the UK, Europe, or some, Singapore, etc., or Australia perhaps, they have it better than Indians do. But the more stories I've heard, the more nuances I've understood, what I've realized is that matrimonial law, divorce law around the world, in some ways is good for the husband, some ways good for the wife, some ways really bad for the husband, some ways really bad for the wife. For example, in India, registering a criminal case without proof is on most days far more easier for the wife. Getting maintenance is a little more easier for the wife, especially if she's cheating or she's having affairs or she's cruel, etc. But the timeline in which she gets that maintenance can be severely different. Usually in India, it takes much more time for the wife to get any maintenance amount from the husband in comparison to these developed countries. Another aspect, the reason why I was wanted to make this video, is that this peculiar situation arises where obviously you've got your fair share of problems in India. However, for the wife, but for the husband, a big problem in India is that custody and visitation rights becomes a nightmare. However, most of the developed countries around the world, courts are very fair when it comes to shared custody arrangements and, or at the very least, visitation rights. For example, in India, especially if the child is young, there's very little chance you will get any shared custody or custody of the child as the father. Visitation rights you'll get maybe 1 or 2 hours in a week. But however, from whatever stories I've heard over the years, thousands of NRI clients, getting shared custody or sole custody for the child or getting several hours a week of visitation rights, very common practice. And there are a lot of pros and cons of litigations on either sides of the world, but one thing is clear. If you're a father who has a lot of affection for the children, you're ready to sacrifice thousands and thousands of dollars and pounds and euros and Singapore dollars, I don't even remember the currency. In these situations, you will have to put up with the fight in your country of residence, jurisdiction, and get orders of the court that the wife cannot take the kids back to India, because if she does, game over. But then yes, alimony will be far lower on most days, maintenance amounts will be lower on most days, comparison to what the foreign courts will give you on most days. So these are pros, cons that you'll have to kind of consider.